Welcome to the eCommerce Badassery podcast, the place for scrappy female entrepreneurs who want to learn actionable steps and strategies to grow the traffic, sales, and profit in your e-commerce business. I'm your host, Jessica Totillo-Coster, a 20-year retail veteran who spent 3 years as the only employee of a 7-figure online store. That shit was crazy. I know exactly how it feels to do all the things, and I'm sharing everything I learned the hard way so you don't have to. I may have started this business by accident, but supporting badass bosses like you lights me the fuck up, and I am so stoked to see you grow. Are you ready, babe? Let's roll. Hello, friend, and welcome back to the eCommerce Badassery podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Totillo-Coster. Well, it's Thanksgiving week in 2020, and instead of an episode focused on strategies and how-tos, today I'm going to do a little bit of a life/business update for you. When I started this podcast, I knew I wanted to launch with 3 episodes, so you'd have something to binge from the start. And when I was deciding what topics to cover, I went back and forth on whether or not I should include an episode introducing you to me and giving a bit of my backstory and why I started eCommerce Badassery. I ended up doing it thinking that no one would even bother to listen, but to date, it's actually one of my most downloaded episodes. So I figured with all the change that's happened this year and what I've got in the pipeline for 2021, I thought it would be a good time to recap and reflect on all the things with you. We've had a tough year, but I have to actually say thank you to the pandemic and the lockdown. Honestly, if it wasn't for that, I don't know if I'd be full-time in eCommerce Badassery right now. I was running the business as a side hustle for a long time, and it was starting to get to that point where I couldn't grow anymore while I had the job, but I wasn't sure if I could grow enough, and I was too afraid to quit. But when we went into lockdown and started working from home, I ended up getting all of this extra time back. And it certainly was not because I was any less busy with work. I was actually busier because we were running shorthanded. But I no longer had to drive to and from the office. It was easier to take eCommerce Badassery calls during my lunch hour. And because I didn't really have to look like a normal human being, I didn't have to spend as much time blow drying my hair, putting on makeup, and doing all the things. That little bit of extra time I got gave me the opportunity to build more momentum in my business and ultimately take the leap from my day job and go full time. As shitty as this fucking year has been, there are still a lot of good things that came out of it. That's not to say I was any less afraid of making the leap, but when a good friend of mine lost her husband to a brain tumor in his early 40s, I thought to myself, what the fuck am I waiting for? And it really was the final straw. I walked into the kitchen and said to my husband, I think I'm ready to quit. And he said, okay. He was ready for me to quit a long time ago, and we had totally planned for this. We saved up, so we had a financial cushion during this transition, and I kept thinking to myself, okay, when we hit this number, then I'll quit. And then it was something else. When that happens, I'll quit. And then the next something and the next something. The craziest thing of all was when I finally mustered up the courage to tell my boss. He said he'd been mentally preparing for this moment for about a year because he knew I was going to outgrow them and go on to do big things, and that he thought I was making the right decision. I was legit in tears, and talk about validation. The lesson here, friends, is we're never really ready. Whatever that big thing is we want to do next, we're never going to be ready. There's never a perfect time. And sometimes we really do need to just take the big leap. Another big win, and if you've been following me for a while, you may have visually noticed that I actually lost 30 pounds. How I managed to do that in quarantine, I'm not really sure. Honestly, it's because I did a program with mostly prepackaged food, so I didn't have to think about it too much. I didn't have to make anything. It was just there ready for me. Because the minute I'm left to my own devices, it's a free-for-all, and I'll be eating all of the things. The crazy thing, though, is while I knew I had gained a lot of weight, my clothes told me that, like I knew. But it wasn't until I lost it and looked back at videos and client calls where I really see it. And look, it's not about the weight. We're all beautiful no matter our size. But it was the heaviest I'd ever been, and it was really just a symptom of how unhappy I was. I think back to so many days at the office. I basically ate a Snickers bar every single day, and if I'm telling the truth, sometimes too, if the vending machine dropped an extra one. And most nights I was having snacks too, late night watching TV. It was literally just snacks on snacks on snacks. And I think it was when I was starting to bust out of the pants that were 2 sizes up from my norm that I finally said enough was enough and started to make the change. And detoxing from sugar was no fun, but I felt so much better. And it wasn't just about fitting back into my clothes, though that was absolutely amazing. But I had so much more mental clarity, so much more energy, and I was just happier all around. And I'm pretty sure not having to be in the office of that day job contributed to that happiness too. Oh, and you know what else happened in 2020? I probably talked about politics more this year than I have in all of my other years combined. Some of this is certainly due to age, but we all know it's really because this was one of the most politically charged years most of us have probably experienced in our lifetime. There were a lot of times when I had to just turn it off and say, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Protecting my energy so I could continue to show up and serve you was so important to me. And no matter what side of the aisle you're on, I'm sure it was draining for you too. But like so much else in 2020, there is actually good news. People are having conversations they weren't having before. Not always civil, but conversations nonetheless. And that's all I have to say about that. With all of that said, though, do you know what the real highlight of my year was? All the clients I've served, the amazing people I've met, and the connections I've made. I may not have left my house very much this year, and I could be going a little bit stir crazy, but I don't feel isolated. The relationships I've created while being immersed in the online space have been awesome, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of those relationships and each and every one of you. Seriously, when I hear the feedback about the podcast, I just keep thinking, damn, I should have started it sooner. But that's always the way, isn't it? It's rare you hear someone say, oh, I'm so happy I waited so long to do this thing. So 2021 is right around the corner, and it's time to figure out what's next for eCommerce Badassery. I want to be able to serve more of you. And the only way to do that with my current business model is to build an agency, and that's not what I want. And I don't want to trust your business to just anyone. So it's time to introduce something new. And that, my friend, is going to be a group container, and I am so fucking excited about it. I've already got some ideas of what it's going to look like, but like everything I do, I'm doing it for you, not me. So before I hash out all the gritty details, I want to hear from you. I set up a survey to get your feedback, and it should only take you about 4 minutes to complete it. So please, please, please scroll down to the show notes wherever you're listening and take the survey. I would so appreciate it. The only 2 things I know for sure are that it's going to be a blend of group coaching / membership and a mastermind. That's what my gut was telling me to do, and the survey results I've gotten so far confirm that. And there will be 2 groups based on the level of business you're at to make sure the feedback you're getting from your peers is based on similar experience and struggles. In addition to the group experience, I'll be bringing on more guests to the podcast next year so you can hear someone's voice other than mine. I'm going to be including both subject matter experts and other e-commerce badasses just like you. I'm excited to dig deeper into concepts and strategies with amazing minds in the e-commerce space and to share stories and strategies from other entrepreneurs who are building their online stores. Do you want to be one of those podcast guests? DM me on Instagram and let me know. I'd love to hear more about your story and the value you can bring to all the eCommerce Badassery listeners. And don't forget, coming up this December, we're going to be here every Tuesday on schedule, and we're going to be covering some super important topics. All the episodes will be short and sweet. They're going to be mini episodes, so it won't take you away from your business, but they are a must listen. And the things we're going to talk about, if you're not already using or implementing them, the new year is going to be the perfect time to start. And yes, my friends, I know you are in the height of holiday, but we have to start thinking about next year. So these episodes will be the perfect way for you to start making your 2021 to-do list. Okay, friends, I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving and a kick-ass Black Friday weekend. And e-commerce friend, I will see you on the flip side. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful if you'd leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're looking to surround yourself with more product entrepreneurs who totally get your life right now, get your booty on over to the eCommerce Badassery Facebook group. Can't wait to see you there. Until next time, e-commerce friends, stay badass.